What's your "it wasn't me and it really wasn't you" story? My wife found panties in the laundry that wasn't hers. She had some questions for me. I had no idea how the fuck they got there. Still confused to this day. Next comment. Back when I was in college, I was taking a writing class and the room was full of computers with LCD monitors. Now, LCDs had just come out and those were some expensive ass monitors. I made a crack about damn, I know where I'm coming back to tonight. Thing is, the room was literally robbed that night and all the monitors taken. I walked in, saw what had happened, and immediately threw my hands up and went, I swear to God I didn't do it. Luckily they laughed and said they knew I had been joking, but damn. Next comment. In high school, the teacher was going from desk to desk checking on our progress on a project. Before he gets to my desk, my friend in front of me unleashes hell with his ass. Silent but deadly. The teacher gets to me, leans in to see my work and then says, "Whoa. Your breath is horrible, what did you eat for breakfast?" Decades later, I go for a job interview where the same friend works. I'm flown out for the interview, so it's an 8-hour interview with everyone in the department. After 2 hours, my friend comes in and says, "Hey man, how's it going? Do you need anything?" I say no, it's going well, so he says great, I'll send in the next guy then he unleashes hell with his ass. Then he laughs, leaves the room and sends the next interviewer in. Follow up, the next interviewer came in, took a whiff and I was about to say something when he says, yeah, I know, Bob was here. We know Bob. And yes, I got the job. Next comment. Idiot friend thought his girlfriend and I were sleeping together in high school. We never did, never even held hands. Next comment. This is kinda a long one, but something that really stuck out to me in my childhood. When I was 6 years old I had to walk home with these other kids to their parents' house to be babysat before my parents could pick me up after work. These other kids were older than me, and though I vaguely remember them, I remember that they were pretty rotten kids. One day around Christmas, we were walking after school when the son of my babysitter and some of his friends stopped at a nearby house. For some horrible reason they began to pull the Christmas light bulbs off this house to break them. There was around 3 boys plucking off light bulbs, placing them down on the driveway and stomping on them. I was terrified of this because the sound and the glass was scary to me, and I couldn't even leave the situation because I had to follow the one boy home to get babysat. Well, the next day the principal calls on all of us. There was a neighbor across the street watching the whole thing unfold. Next thing I know my dad has to come in, and watch me get chewed out by the teachers and principal for something I didn't do. After that my dad had to buy new Christmas lights to replace the ones that were broken. My dad wouldn't even look at me, he was so furious. I had no idea what to do, I remember just being really quiet, because I hadn't done anything. We bought new lights, I had to write an apology letter, I had detention, and my parents threatened to deny me my Christmas presents. It was all very numbing as a really young kid. If I had actually broken the lights I think I would have been upset with myself, and that would have been easier on me to process. But I never ever forgot it. It wasn't really a frustrating memory, more of a sad one. I knew my parents wouldn't believe me because I was just a kid. Until I turned 20. On my 20th birthday I remember my dad and I were getting into the truck to go pick something up. For some reason, I remembered the whole Christmas lights incident. As we were walking on the driveway I stopped and turned to my dad and this conversation happened. Me, hey, Dad. Dad, yeah. Me, do you remember that time when I was in grade school, and I got in trouble for breaking someone's Christmas lights? Dad, kind of. Not really. Me, I had to walk home to get to a babysitter's by following her son. On our way home he and a bunch of his friends vandalized a house by stomping on the Christmas lights. You had to come to school the next day to hear from the principal and we bought replacement lights at Canadian Tire afterwards. Do you remember that? Dad, oh yeah, I do remember that. Me, I knew you wouldn't believe me then, but I hope you'll believe me now. I didn't do it. I didn't do it, Dad. I didn't break those lights. My dad was pretty stunned. He was more surprised that I remembered it so well. He gave me a hug afterwards. My dad isn't a very emotional man, I'd say, so it wasn't a reaction I expected. But it meant a lot to 6-year-old me. Next comment. I once got a call in college from campus police telling me they were running an investigation and had questions for me. Being an upstanding citizen and wanting to help bring criminals to justice, I agreed. Their only question was, are you currently enrolled in the pep band? I was. They thanked me and hung up. About 2 to 3 weeks go by and I hadn't heard anything, so I asked one of my other pep band friends if they got a similar call. She goes, oh, is this about the sexual harassment case? Which was about the time my jaw hit the floor. Apparently a kid with a similar name to mine was the offender, but was not officially enrolled in the pep band class due to credit hours and such. So I was suspect numero uno for a crime I was completely unaware of. Next comment. Almost got suspended in middle school for something my friend said to a girl. Next comment. I want to preface this by saying I truly do love my parents, and I'm not meaning any disrespect when I post this. But man, they have some weird standards about gaming. When my brothers were like 15 or something like that, my dad walked in on them playing COD while I was visiting. While I personally have no issue with the game, my parents are fairly strict about age ratings and such with games, and particularly dislike FPS style violence. Whether you agree or not is up to you, this is just their style of parenting. Anyways, my dad sees it, shuts off the Xbox, and gets mad at them for playing something they know they shouldn't, then yells about it to my mom on the other side of the house when she asks what happened. Immediately my brothers profess their innocence, as they of course didn't buy it, and so all blame immediately turns to me, the bad example. I was 26 at the time, as I recall. My mom asks where they got it from, and my dad's immediate response is, "Who do you think?" before she then starts to lecture me about bringing inappropriate games into the home. Keep in mind they've watched me play Resident Evil before and had no issue, so before I let them get too far along on their high horse, I cut them off and simply asked why on earth I'd even own an Xbox game, let alone bring one over, when I owned a PS3 and had never even touched the console because I hate the way the controller is designed. Instantly shut them up and vindicated me. Turns out it was a borrowed copy from a friend of theirs who owned the same system. But my brothers were perfectly happy to toss me under the bus rather than own up to it. Go figure. Next comment. I was walking out of the hospital and in front of me a small child was running. I said to my mom I want to trip him, and before I finished my sentence the child tripped and fell. I immediately threw my hands in the air and yelled it wasn't me. Next comment. Many years ago I worked in an office that had a really old candy vending machine that required you to put your coins in front of the item you wanted to buy and manually turn a crank to get it to drop. And because this machine was so old, it also didn't have one of those covers that prevented someone from reaching a hand up into the slot and stealing off the bottom rack. Well, somebody in the office figured that out and started stealing candy from the vending machine. Not long after this problem had been brought to light, I found myself getting called into the office of one of the managers. She had come to the brilliant conclusion that because she had seen me at the vending machine buying a snack every single break, that she knew it was me who had been stealing from it, and as soon as she had proof she was going to see that I was fired. Go back and read that sentence again if you need to. A couple of days later the actual thief was caught red-handed, as in, with her hand up the vending machine. Interestingly, the owner of the company opted not to fire her but instead forced her to meet the guy who stocked the vending machine, who was a retiree who kept a few vending machines in a few different offices around the city to give himself something to do. The dumb shit of a manager who accused me never apologized, never admitted she was wrong, and never faced any repercussions for accusing me of a crime that I didn't commit. Next comment. I have a lot of these. But most ridiculous was when I was about 13 and got suspended for getting in a fight on a day I was homesick. I guess my friend got in a fight and they were so used to me finishing her fights that they automatically assumed I was involved. And of course my talking back gave me detention that wasn't reversed when I proved I wasn't there. Next comment. I got accused of being a bad influence and an enabler by my friend's new girlfriend. He had clearly only shown her his good side, but he couldn't keep that up around me because we'd been pals for too many years. Next comment. I got blamed for some mean letters about classmates just because I was never mentioned in them. I still get angry about it because I was dragged out of class and missed a field trip to be interrogated about it. Next comment. Me and my then boyfriend, now husband, lived with my sister in a townhome for a while. I was 17 to 18, he was 19 to 20. My sister, 24-ish at the time, had just gotten a new BF who lived across town, so she was rarely home. Worked out, since me and my BF ended up having the place basically to ourselves. My sister would come home though after being gone for a few days and complain about the cleanliness of the house. We were young, so not super clean by any means. But most of the mess was exclusive to our room and the kitchen. Didn't really go anywhere else in the house. So one day she comes home, yells about the mess in the kitchen, we fight. Not unusual for the time. I guess at some point she went into her room, went to grab a pair of socks from one of those plastic dresser things, and found that all of her socks were covered in pee. She blamed us right away. We swore up and down we had nothing to do with it. I had noticed maybe a week prior when I went into her room that it smelled off, but didn't investigate. That was the only time I recall going in her room. We weren't drinkers. Didn't have friends over. She swears she didn't do it. To this day, I have no idea who peed in there. I just know it wasn't me. Next comment. I'm a recovered addict, 6 years in May. I was notorious for digging through the entire family's medicine cabinets for whatever I could find. Q about a month ago, my very frail, injured grandmother's OxyContin goes missing. Q all eyes on me. They berated me for hours trying to get a confession out of me. You couldn't have taken them all, your nanny needs them. But I didn't do it. I had no idea how to defend myself, all I could offer was a drug test, but that wasn't good enough. They insisted on pulling the security footage. My dad is weird. He has cameras all over his house and installed them at my grandparents' house too. To cut to the chase, it turns out my cousin, also a drug addict that has gone so far and done so many horrific things, who was cut out of the family when she wasn't in prison, made a surprise visit during the day when nobody was home. We watched as she broke into the house, used a key, only breaking in the sense that she didn't belong there, and we have no idea where they found a copy of the key, rummaged around every single cabinet, drawer, nook, or cranny. She walked out of their bedroom holding a grocery bag full of crap and out the door again. It was pandemonium in that house, everybody panicking and worrying about their own empty houses but with no way to contact her or know where she is. Nobody apologized to me though. Felt good to be vindicated, but nobody said sorry, we should have known it wasn't you. Urgh. Sorry, I know that's a kind of lame story and I'm too lazy to go into proper details. But it hurt that I was accused, even if I understood why they would accuse me. Next comment. Some idiots tried to play Ouija board in hostel common room. Maybe something did turn up, more likely they freaked themselves. Anyhow, they ended up bolting, leaving the board, nice design, BTW, and candles and stuff. Well. Come morning, the cleaning ladies find the mess. Warden nun lines us all up, lectures us on the dangers of such traffic. To be fair, she didn't just go the whole devil will eat your soul thing. Also pointed out possible psychological damage thanks to overactive imaginations. Asks the players to come to her office and own up privately. Of course, no one does. I am really into occult stuff, so of course I am the top suspect. Had teachers calling me aside to talk for a while, got a bit of weird looks. Found out who the idiot players were and managed to convince them that the demon they summoned was now haunting their room and / or possessing me. Was fun. Next comment. Next comment. In year 1 of primary school, I was accused and punished for writing a rude note about another kid in my class. It made no sense considering I found the note on my best friend's desk, who I also sat next to, and gave it to the teacher. I thought it was the right thing to do. After 2 sit-downs with everyone she suspected to be responsible for it, she somehow came to the conclusion that it must have been me who wrote the note. In retrospect, I am glad it happened, because it was when I first developed the understanding that the world is not a fair or necessarily just place. Funnily enough, some 14 or so years later, I'm now in law school. Next comment. First grade at a birthday party. A kid was playing table tennis and got hit in the eye with a ping pong ball by his opponent. Everyone, including the kid, ganged up on me and accused me of poking him in the eye even though I was just an innocent bystander. Next comment. I worked at sort of a Walmart-like store. Someone would constantly leave bags of Starbucks grounds and tiny empty bottles of a specific brand of alcohol in a specific aisle several times a week. One of my coworkers thought it was someone trying to drive him crazy. I thought that was funny, and because I thought it was funny, he thought it was me. I could never convince him that it wasn't. It was all in good fun. Next comment. A kid in my class, who was sitting next to me, was cutting up glue sticks and throwing them at the school boards. Teacher comes in, sees the board and calls her supervisor to her classroom. Supervisor says, whoever it is, come forward and there will be no problems. No one comes forward, so she just keeps us in the room until someone confesses. No one does, so she is going to check our bags. I had one of them glue stick, but you could see that mine was used and not cut off. I walk up to her and even before she opens my bag she says in a silent voice, "You are my main suspect." She sees the glue stick, tries to blame me. I explain to her the stick has been used. I get to sit back at my chair. I didn't tell her who it was because I ain't no snitch. Guy was eventually gets caught because some girl in my class snitched on the dude, but that lady was actually a bitch for telling me I was her main suspect. Next comment. Happened to me just an hour ago. Grandma called me on the phone and gave me the worrying "we need to talk now" spiel, and I hurried to her house. Turns out she was missing 20 euros from her wallet, and no one but me and her could access it. She didn't consider Grandpa a possibility. I was super surprised and told her I didn't take her money. She ended up believing me, and after I arrived home again, she gave me a phone call and told me that Grandpa actually took her money without telling her. Glad it was resolved so quickly, but I thought I was gonna be in real trouble there, lol. Next comment. An ex-coworker of mine thought I sent his girlfriend an email or text via Facebook telling her that he was a serial cheater. He seems to only think that I did it because I have a desktop computer. I'm deadass. Him and his little friends believe that since I have a computer that it must be true. Jackasses. Next comment. In elementary school I got detention for a fight that happened during gym class. We were running the mile and I was on the other side of the track during the fight. Next comment. Next comment. My friends and I had a modded Minecraft server. One friend had set up windmills to generate power, and someone else planted a bunch of saplings under them so my friend would have to keep chopping trees down so his windmills could work. I'm kind of the prankster of our group, and that's totally something I'd do, but it really wasn't me. Next comment. When I was like 12 years old, my younger brother had this cassette. It was like 2001, but my parents wouldn't buy us CDs BC, they were more expensive, of a super old singer, and he would play it every day. We had to share the one radio. I hated it so much. One day the cassette went missing and everybody blamed me for it. I didn't do it. I'm 30. My brother is 27 and my family still talks about how I broke his heart by throwing out his favorite music. I'm like, I swear I didn't do it. What's the point of lying at this point? But they still don't believe me. Also, I think my husband is like 20% convinced I cheated on him last summer and not even close. My gosh. Nothing. Just a convenient platonic friendship at a time when I had to spend all of my time away from home. Next comment. I was one of a dozen suspects for the hallway shitter in high school a good 20 years back. Every one of the dozen, including me, turned out to not be the suspect, as another deuce was dropped while we were all being interrogated. I sometimes forget how odd my high school was. Next comment. When I was a kid, an asshole friend of my mom's accused me of stealing her house keys. She said she found them in our garden, and whether that's true or not, I have no idea how they might got there. Got no sweets for a month. Very sad for me as a fucked up 6-year-old. She was an asshole for other reasons than the keys fiasco, but that's another can of worms entirely. Next comment. When I was a kid, the circular glass plate inset in the microwave broke while I was heating something up. I have no idea how or why. Told my dad about it and he thought that I somehow broke it. Pissed me off that he wouldn't believe me. Next comment. In 9th grade, we were all sitting in class taking a quiz so it was quiet. Well, the girl in front of me repositioned herself in her chair and let out the loudest fart ever, LMAO. Everyone looked at me and my best friend 3 seats up looked back and looked right at me and blamed it on me, LOL. I felt bad for the girl cause she was obviously embarrassed, but I never told anyone it was her. Next comment. After finding out I'd gone to see a movie, alone, which I have always enjoyed doing, an ex of mine was convinced I'd cheated, just unsure of when or with whom. A year and a half of bad insomnia, them looking through my phone while I sleep, waking up at 4 a.m. to fight about non-issues that were overreactions, tons of insecurities on their part which led to insecurity for me feeling unable to help them, etc. Wound up unfollowing / defriending a lot of old friends / close classmates / influencers / YouTuber / professional connections just because they were the opposite sex. Looking back, I cannot believe how far it got and how low both of our self-worths plummeted around baseless, yet stubborn, accusations. Next comment. I had a girl with whom I had recently broken up with call me, and tell me she was ill and needed some help. I am a schmuck, so I went to her place. I made her some soup, got her some New York quill, half carried her to her room, and cleaned up the kitchen while she readied for bed. Before I left, I sat on the edge of her bed, kissed her on the forehead, and left. I know I locked the door. I always lock doors. 2 days later she shows up at my place and tells me that she didn't file a police report about my raping her, but she should have, and screamed at me to keep away from her, and she never wanted to see me again. It took me an embarrassing amount of time to grok what was happening. Months later I got a letter of apology. Her roommate's boyfriend had come by, let himself in with a key he wasn't supposed to have, and found the woman he was there to see was absent. I don't know how this story was uncovered. Next comment. In high school I had this crazy ass ex-girlfriend I'll call Jane, who I had to file a restraining order against. She would call me hundreds of times and follow me on her car and call my mom telling her I was still having sex with her. Her mom one day called my parents saying that Jane's brother-in-law had his wallet stolen from her house and the debit card was used at the ATM. They said they had video of it and the guy was wearing a mask and that it was me and they could prove it. They said if I don't drop the restraining order by 8 p.m. the following day they would go to the police. My parents were so pissed at me and were on me all about if I did it. They didn't believe me. I finally convinced them it wasn't me. The next day 8 p.m. rolled by and nothing. Never heard from them or seen them again. It was sincerely not me. Next comment. Dad lost a bottle of Xanax and thought I swiped it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed.